Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what the hell just happened today, what we can expect moving into tomorrow. Tomorrow is I think it's triple witching day or quad witching day. It's one of those two. I forgot which one it is. Essentially, expect volatility tomorrow. And yeah, I'll give you my thoughts moving forward and all of that good stuff. So as per usual, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live. That link is down below. For just $2.99 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, posts, updates on Tesla, and sometimes the broader market as a whole every single day that the market is open. So definitely check it out if you're interested. $5, access to all of that, plus also NVIDIA daily updates as well. So definitely check that out. Link is below. But let's jump into Tesla. Let's talk about what just happened today. Tesla with the unbelievable day of 7.5%, we'll say, closing at almost $244 per share. Unbelievable rally, just really across the board, though, not just Tesla. I mean, Tesla definitely outperformed, but unbelievable rally across the market after a pretty massive bear trap. Now, I just want to make this clear. This is why I personally extremely rarely short the market, or if I ever have puts on the market, Tesla, whatever, it's strictly as a hedge. And even that's pretty rare. I usually like to have my bearish aspect is I like to sell calls or just being cash. It's pretty rare I actually buy puts because days like this happen. And if you went too heavy or whatever and too greedy on those puts, because the close yesterday, it did look bearish, right? The close across the board looked not great, honestly. It looked like, there was a bit more downside to be expected. Instead, the market absolutely face ripped. That's gonna hurt, right? And this is why I just don't do it. Now, did I miss out on profits? Absolutely, but this is why I don't short, because you're just down quite a lot today. Honestly, it's absolutely crazy day. Now, Tesla's interesting. So we talked about it. And I mentioned many times that honestly, I do expect Tesla to, there's a decent damn chance that it comes up to, this rough mid to low 240s. That's exactly where we are. Honestly, though, I will admit, I did expect to move a little bit lower first. I honestly thought it would come down to about the bottom of this wedge one more time, 21 EMA, pretty much today, closer to like 222 roughly is what I said, right? 222-ish. I did think that would happen. Unfortunately, it didn't, and we pretty much just rocketed up. And this is why I think I have my smaller account where I just hold and don't trade. So I still benefited off of this, just obviously not as much as I would like to. But this is where things get interesting, right? This is where things are getting very interesting. Now, Tesla closed at the highs of the day, showing some pretty, actually decent strength. But to be fair, it also closed at the lows of the day yesterday, which was showing some pretty decent weakness. So, take that for what it's worth, of course. But things are interesting here. Why? Well, let's talk about the indicators down here. So you can see I kind of recolored my RSI just to make it look a little more simple and clear. But essentially, Tesla on the daily chart, the RSI is now entering some pretty overbought territory. Now, granted, it's not anywhere near as overbought as it was when it had this pretty much short squeeze all the way up from 180 all the way up to 260. I mean, that was an unbelievable short squeeze, of course. That's when the RSI pretty much entered historical levels of being overbought, right? But with that being said, it is now officially overbought. It is sitting at 81. And again, I want to make it clear. I know people like to meme on the RSI. My RSI is set to 5. It's much more aggressive and it's much less of a laggy indicator. I'll just make that very, very clear. But the RSI overbought. If we just take a zoom out, like again, just what does this really mean? Like, does this really mean anything? Let's just zoom out and take a look. Every time the RSI has crossed this red line, essentially, which is the top part of the RSI, and it's pretty much entered that overbought territory, which is above that red line, each and every single time it has ultimately corrected, right? It doesn't have to be a massive correction. It doesn't have to crash, but it has cooled off, right? Again, I want to make it clear. It doesn't mean that Tesla has to cool off tomorrow. Knowing Tesla, it probably won't, honestly. And sometimes Tesla, what it likes to do is, I think everyone's waiting for a retest of that 232, 235 region, which I'll talk about soon. But the fact that I think a lot of people are probably waiting for that now, Tesla's going to probably be very kind of quote unquote annoying and make it almost seem like as if it doesn't want to go there until eventually it most likely will. Like, I'd be pretty surprised if it doesn't, and I'll explain why soon once we get to the 1 hour chart. But just, I want to make that clear. It doesn't mean it has to just crash tomorrow, right? It can go sideways. It can even go up a little bit more to like 245 gap fill. There is a gap fill at 245 that we're very close to. That can happen. So I just want to make that clear. But just looking strictly off of statistics, right? RSI and the stochastic, both into overbought territories. Each and every single time you see it has entered this level on both of them. They're very similar in how they move, right? Especially now that my RSI is aggressive. They're very similar indicators in a sense, honestly. Each and every time, they both have went from overbought back to at least the middle range, if not at some point oversold, right? That has happened every single time. And people, I still remember when we had the short squeeze and we were sitting up at the 260s, people were telling me 300 is next, right away. There's no pullbacks. We're rocketing up to 300. That's it. We're only going up. I remember people were saying that. And honestly, I would not be surprised if I see those kind of comments today, right? But just, again, trying our best to remove any emotion or, just being really objective about this, right? Nothing subjective, no emotions, just trying to be objective. Whenever we enter these kind of levels, Tesla, just really in general, the market, it doesn't matter if it's Tesla or any other stock, there is a much higher chance that you cool off before you go up too much higher. So that's important. Just I want to make that very darn clear, right? That is just important to understand. If you're chasing all the way up here, yeah, maybe you'll go a little bit higher. Yeah, maybe you'll make some money. But the risk versus reward, in my opinion, up here right now, at a major resistance, especially with triple witching day tomorrow, right? Not the best. So let's talk about this a little bit more, right? Let's dive in a little bit further into the actual candles and whatnot, right? So as we pushed up, right, we're pretty much looking at strictly the horizontal levels here. We're at a major resistance level, right? This area right here, you can see that we're pretty much peeking our head into right now, which ranges from the mid to, or the low-ish to the high-ish 240s area of, resistance. Why? Because back here, you can see when we had that short squeeze and we came up to 260s, we pretty much treated this general vicinity. You can see how many wicks there are in this area as a support, right? And even if I zoom all the way back over here, when we still had this massive trading region, right? How many times have we traded in this area and it's acted as a resistance or a support, right? You can see, let me just bring out the drawing, right? Massive area of support, some resistance. Then it had a massive candle, support. A little bit of support and resistance action here. Broke down below, crash. Massive area of resistance over here, decent area of support over here, a little bit more resistance, move down. So I just want to make it clear, this area is pretty important that we're entering right now. And if history serves as any indicator, especially with these overbought conditions, in theory, especially with this gap fill pretty much at 245, this should be an area of massive resistance. Can it just completely ignore everything and just completely rocket even higher? Absolutely. But if you're, again, trading is not about praying for the best. It's about using the statistics, if you will, and trying to use them as much in your favor as possible. And right now, the statistics say we're entering a massive area of resistance. We're up 7%. So obviously chasing a 7% day, probably not the best idea for most cases. Not always, of course. Maybe you can get lucky, but for most cases, it's not. RSI is overbought. Stochastic is now overbought, right? Not very overbought, but pretty damn overbought. So again, I just want to make that very clear, right? Just take it for what it's worth. Now, let's talk about, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what do I think and what is happening with this, bear wedge, bear flag, or whatever you want to call it. Now, this is where, again, I always talk about how I'm not always the biggest fan of trend lines and whatnot and, these general things because, they are subjective. These are somewhat subjective, right? For instance, I think the bottom trend line actually makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of support on it and there's a lot of validation. The top one, we have two just light wicks that are our current validation. What some people like to do instead is, right now I have it as a wedge. What some people like to do instead is they'll delete this one. They'll actually have it as a flag. And what that means is the fact that they'll take the one that has more validation, in this case, the bottom one, you literally copy paste it and you draw it something like this. And it's usually people like to have it as like a parallel to each other, which essentially means that Tesla does have more room to the upside. Pretty much, if it happens anytime tomorrow, low 250s, which sounds insane, but in theory, there is a potential room for that. So just keep that in mind. But going back to the initial one that I had, you can see on the 1 hour, Tesla did break out above it. Obviously, it's finding some resistance now as we enter that mid 240s, like I just mentioned, right? Massive area of resistance. But interestingly enough, you can see it's finding support almost as if it actually broke out of that pennant version instead of the flag version that I just showed, right? The pennant one, which is the one we've always had. It's showing some signs, like shockingly enough, of a pennant support of this potential breakout, which I'm not going to lie, I am a little bit surprised. I did not think this would happen. So we'll see. There's still some time, right? We need some more validation. One candle doesn't make a trend. One daily candle doesn't make a trend. We want to see more of this validation. Can it hold tomorrow and Monday? That's what I want to see without breaking back under. That's what I want to see. If we break back under, I do believe Tesla at that point, whenever that happens, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's Monday, maybe it's Tuesday, I don't know. I think it'll come down to this 232, 233, 45, like this general region that we've had a lot of issues breaking out above. Now let's talk about that level, right? Let's talk about this potential drawdown, if and when it comes. So usually when you have, okay, so we mentioned this could be an ascending triangle pattern, which is a bullish pattern, right? We mentioned that many times, right? And clearly it's played out so far as an ascending triangle, which is good. It's a bullish pattern, great. But the thing to note here is the fact that more often than not, whenever you have an area, so for instance, this 232, 235 area that has acted as a resistance, here, once here, once here, once here, 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 and even arguably yesterday here a little bit too, right? When it's acted as a resistance this many times, and not only as a resistance, but it actually, pretty often or not, it sank us further a decent amount every single time we did get rejected from that area. Whenever you have such a strong resistance and you finally break above it like we did today, it's pretty rare not to come down to retest it at some point. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's Monday, maybe it's next Wednesday. I don't know. Nobody knows when. Knowing Tesla, it's probably going to make you think it's not going to. Honestly, I would not be surprised if it does do that. That's kind of what Tesla does. I've seen that happen too many times where the stock makes it seem like, yeah, I'm not going to go back there. I'm just not going to go back there. Hey, too late, you missed the boat. And then eventually it just goes back there really quickly. That's just kind of what Tesla stock does. It's a very momentum stock driven, whether it's to the upside or to the downside. So I as of right now, I do expect that to happen. I'd be very surprised if at some point within the next week, let's say, of trading, it doesn't come back down here. That would genuinely surprise me. But am I willing to buy puts and make that bet? No. I don't really care about buying puts. I'm not a shorter. I don't like to short stocks. That's just not my trading style. I don't like doing that. It is what it is. Everyone has their own style. But again, take into account that we're entering massive area of resistance, massive overbought conditions on the RSI and the stochastic now. Well, okay, I wouldn't say massive, but definitely overbought. The odds are telling me the fact that there's a much higher chance we come down to 235 than really see any other continuation of a meaningful higher move from these levels before that retrace and before the cool off of these indicators. Because again, this is on the daily chart, right? These overbought conditions are on the daily chart. This isn't like an hourly chart. It's a daily chart, which also means it can take longer for us to even play out these overbought conditions. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It can. Doesn't mean it has to though. Just make that very darn clear. But ultimately right now, the way I look at it on Tesla is main support right now, absolutely without question, 232, 235. That I'd be surprised if that breaks down below. If it ever loses 232, 235 once again, most likely we fall out of this bottom trend line at some point, which I think is a possibility still, like into October. But if that ever happens, this is a massive bull trap, right? And we most likely head down back to 200, if not lower. However, if we break back above, pretty much we'll just say 245 to 247. Honestly, you can even say 243 to 247. If we ever get back above that level and start turning into support, well, then I would expect Tesla to move up to 265 next. That's just pretty much, it is what it is, right? That's just what I would expect, and that's just kind of what I would see happen. But again, I'd be pretty surprised if it just does that from here. You never know with Tesla, it could, but I'd be pretty surprised if it does that just straight from here. But again, let's take it day by day, right? As of right now, it is showing surprising strength. I'm kind of surprised at how much strength it's showing and how much it held, to be completely honest. But it is what it is, right? The stock is doing what it wants to do, and it's so far holding surprisingly strong. So, it's pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful stock right now. So that's definitely not something I would short. That's for sure, even though it's looking like it's overbought as hell. Anyway, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. In terms of options flow, Tesla, let's take a look at the confirmed. Wow, that is a lot of bearish on DLTR. NVIDIA is actually looking pretty good, but Tesla, nowhere really to be found on the bullish or bearish flow. Let me go ahead and take a look at the bearish flow here. Nothing really to be found here as well. So maybe a lot of profit taking, who knows for sure. Yeah. The main thing I'll be looking at is just those horizontal levels, especially. Honestly, when all else fails, if you don't like trend lines, if you find them too subjective or whatever, which they absolutely sometimes are, horizontal lines, resistance, supports, etc. There's, in my opinion, there's extremely little subjectivity to that, and it's very objective, and it is usually the way to play. Like in my opinion, if you had to choose one way to play horizontal levels or patterns, like bull flag, bear flag, whatever, I would always pick horizontal levels every single day, every single time. So anyway, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm expecting. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.